Usually when you pick up a business book, you expect a very specific kind of advice.
Right, the whole wake up at 4 in the morning thing.
Exactly. Work harder, network better, and maybe if you just grind for 40 years, you get to buy a boat or something.
Yeah, the classic Protestant work ethic.
But today, we're looking at a book that basically takes that entire script and it throws it into a wood chipper. We are doing a deep dive into Timothy Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek.
It is definitely not your standard productivity manual. I would actually argue it is less of a business book and, more of a philosophical manifesto.
It really polarized people when it came out.
Oh, totally. And honestly, it still does.
Yeah.
Because it challenges this fundamental script we're given. This idea that life is something you defer.
Right, the deferred life plan.
Exactly.
The idea that we trade our prime years, our most energetic, healthy years, for a payoff that supposedly comes when we are 65 or 70.
And Ferriss calls that out as a terrible bet. He argues that you are banking on a future that is not guaranteed. And even if you do get there, you might be too tired or sick to actually enjoy the things you spent 40 years saving for.
Which is a depressing thought.
It is. So he proposes an alternative. He calls it the new rich.
And new rich does not necessarily mean flying on private jets, though I guess it could. It is more of a rebranding of wealth entirely.
Yeah, the old rich have money. The new rich, or the NR as he abbreviates it, they have liberty. They prioritize 2 specific currencies over just a bank balance, and those are time and mobility.
Before we get into the mechanics of how you actually pull this off, because honestly it sounds like a fantasy at first, we have to talk about Ferriss himself.
We do. His background totally explains why he thinks this way.
He is not a CEO who slowly climbed the corporate ladder. He is a hacker.
Right.
Not a computer hacker, but like a life hacker.
He treats systems as things to be deconstructed. The best example of this, and it's pretty legendary now, is his Chinese kickboxing title.
Oh, this is wild.
He won a national championship. But if you ask actual martial artists, they might say let's just say he creatively interpreted the sport.
I love this story because it is so audacious. He essentially just read the rule book better than anyone else in the tournament. He realized weigh-ins were the day before the fight.
Yes. So he used extreme dehydration techniques, saunas, sweating it out, to drop nearly 30 pounds just to make a lower weight class.
30 pounds?
Yeah. And then he rehydrated overnight. So when he stepped into the ring the next day, he was 3 weight classes heavier than his poor opponent.
That is just terrifying physics, but technically legal. And then his actual fighting strategy was even more cynical.
He noticed a technicality in the rules. If a fighter fell off the elevated platform 3 times in a single round, they lost by default.
So he did not bother learning complex strikes or kicks.
Not at all. He just learned how to push people. He treated it like sumo wrestling. He literally shoved them off the platform 3 times, and he won.
Push the competition out of the way.
He really did.
Yeah.
And while some people call that unsportsmanlike, Ferriss uses it to illustrate his core philosophy, which is basically asking, what are the unspoken rules we follow just because everyone else follows them?
He wants the path of least resistance to the maximum result.
Exactly. And that brings us to the framework of the book. He breaks this lifestyle design down into an acronym: DEAL, definition, elimination, automation, and liberation.
Although there is a really crucial caveat he adds in there.
Right. If you are currently an employee, you should flip it to DLA.
So liberation first.
Yes. You want liberation, the ability to work remotely before you start automating your tasks. If you are sitting in a cubicle and your boss sees you doing nothing because you automated your entire job, you are not going to be new rich.
You are just going to be unemployed.
Exactly. Secure the freedom first.
So let's start with D for definition. This is where he tries to break our obsession with the annual salary.
This is the math that really trips people up. Because we are conditioned to think that $100,000 is always better than $50,000.
It seems completely obvious.
It does. But Ferriss introduces the concept of relative income.
This is the Jane versus John comparison.
Right. So look at Jane. She makes $100,000 a year. Sounds great. But she lives in New York City, and she works 80 hours a week. She is an investment banker or a lawyer.
So she is stressed out, she is sleeping under her desk, and she is buying $20 salads every day because she has no time to cook.
Precisely. Now look at John. John makes $50,000. But John works 10 hours a week and lives in Thailand. Or maybe a low-cost rural area.
So in absolute terms, Jane is richer.
But in relative terms, which is dollars earned per hour worked, John is crushing her. Jane makes about $24 an hour. John makes $100 an hour.
And it is not just the hourly rate either. It is the multiplier of what you can actually do with that money. John's 50,000 goes a lot further in Chiang Mai than Jane's 100,000 goes in Manhattan.
That is the mobility currency coming into play.
Yeah.
Ferriss argues that you shouldn't aim to be a millionaire. You should aim to live the millionaire lifestyle.
Which is very different.
Very. And if you actually price that lifestyle out, it is surprisingly affordable.
He calls this dreamlining. I actually sat down and tried to do the math on this myself while reading the material, and it is shocking how vague our goals usually are. We just say, I want to be rich.
It is a lazy goal.
Right. What does that even mean?
Ferriss says you need to be specific. You want an Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't need $200,000 in the bank to drive one. You need roughly $2,000 a month to lease it.
Right. You want a personal assistant. That is not a $60,000 salary. Maybe it is $400 a month for a virtual service. You want to spend a month in Argentina. Price out the rent and the airfare.
When you add up the monthly cost of your wildest dreams, the car, the travel, the private lessons, the number, the TMI or target monthly income is often something like $4,000 or $5,000 a month.
It is completely achievable.
It is. It is not, oh, I need $10 million in the bank. It changes the timeline from retiring in 40 years to starting to live this way in 6 months.
But the thing that stops people isn't the math. It is the fear. We are terrified of stepping off the treadmill. This is where fear setting comes in.
I think this is the most valuable exercise in the entire book, honestly. We are hardwired to fear uncertainty more than we fear a bad situation.
We will stay in a miserable job just because it is predictable.
Exactly. So fear setting forces you to visualize the absolute worst-case scenario.
So take Ferriss's personal example. He wanted to take a trip around the world. His nightmare was that his business would totally collapse while he was gone.
So he wrote it down. If I go and everything blows up, what happens? Well, he would lose some savings. He might have to move into a cheaper apartment. He might have to tend bar for a while to pay rent.
And when you look at that list, you realize nobody died.
It's completely reversible.
That is the big realization. The worst case scenario is usually a temporary 3 or 4 on the pain scale out of 10, but the potential upside, the life-changing experience, the freedom, that is a permanent 9 or 10.
He flips the question entirely. Instead of asking, what if I fail, he asks, what is the cost of inaction?
That is the haunting question.
It really is. If you do not make a change, where will you be in 10 years? If the answer is exactly where you are now, but older and more tired, that should scare you way more than the risk of trying something new.
So let's say you've defined the dream. You know the cost. Now you run into the reality. You don't have time. You are drowning in email and meetings. This moves us to E for elimination.
And this is where Ferriss gets very aggressive. He attacks the cult of busyness. We wear busyness like a badge of honor today. Oh, I am so slammed. I am so busy.
Ferriss says doing something unimportant well does not make it important.
Yes.
I feel personally attacked by that statement. I spend half my day clearing my inbox and I feel so productive, but have I actually moved the needle on anything?
Probably not. He calls that lazy thinking because it's easier to answer emails than to sit down and design a new high-level strategy. To fix this, Ferriss combines 2 laws, the Pareto principle and Parkinson's law.
Let's start with Pareto, the 80-20 rule.
Right. The Pareto principle says 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. Ferriss applied this to his own company. He analyzed his customers and found that a tiny group, maybe 5 people, was generating 95% of his revenue.
And conversely, the other 95% of customers were causing 98% of his stress.
So he fired them.
Which is such a baller move. Just telling clients, you are too much work, you are fired.
It sounds incredibly harsh, but it is logical. He fired the high-maintenance, low-profit customers. He focused entirely on the top 5%. His revenue actually went up, and his work hours dropped immediately. He just eliminated the noise.
But then he pairs that with Parkinson's law, which basically states that work expands to fill the time you give it.
We have all felt this. If you have a month to write a report, it takes a month. If your boss says, I need this in 2 hours or you're fired, you somehow magically finish it in 2 hours.
And it is usually better because you did not overthink it.
Exactly. So Ferriss says we should impose artificial, incredibly short deadlines on ourselves. Do not give yourself an 8-hour workday. Give yourself 2 hours to finish the critical tasks.
You will be amazed at how much fluff just disappears because you literally don't have time for it.
One of the biggest sources of fluff, though, is information. The news, social media, the constant pinging. He suggests a low-information diet.
This is controversial, especially now. He advocates for selective ignorance. No newspapers, no news apps, no television news.
I can hear people panicking right now. But how will I know if the world ends?
His argument is, if it is truly important, like if the world is actually ending, someone will tell you. He uses the 5-minute news fix. He just asks a waiter or a colleague, hey, anything wild happened in the world today?
It's just-in-time information versus just in case. We hoard information just in case we need it, but we rarely ever do.
And most of it is outside our circle of influence anyway. Consuming it just creates anxiety without giving us any agency.
The other massive time suck is email. Ferriss has a strategy here that I actually tried once, and it terrified me, but it worked perfectly. The autoresponder.
Oh, the batching strategy. Checking email only at noon and 4 p.m.
Right. And setting an auto reply that basically says, I am only checking email twice a day to be more efficient. If this is a true emergency, call my phone.
It does two things. One, it groups your work so you aren't constantly context switching and losing focus. But two, and this is the subtle part, it trains other people to respect your time. It completely stops the expectation of an instant reply.
But how do you pull that off without getting fired?
You use the puppy dog close.
Yes. You do not ask your boss for a permanent change. You say, hey, I'm trying a productivity experiment. Can I try this email batching thing for just 2 days? If it causes problems, I will stop immediately.
And it is exactly like taking a puppy home from the pet store just for the weekend. Once they see the results, once they see you getting twice as much done, they never ask you to take the puppy back.
Exactly. The results protect you.
Okay, so we have defined the dream, and we have eliminated the 80% of work that doesn't matter. Now we are left with the 20% that does matter. But Ferriss says you shouldn't necessarily be doing that either, which brings us to A for automation.
The goal here is to remove yourself from the equation entirely. Even if you are efficient, you shouldn't be doing tasks that can be done for less than your hourly rate. This is where we get into outsourcing, virtual assistants, and geo-arbitrage.
We have to talk about A.J. Jacobs here. He is an editor for Esquire who tried to live the book for an article, and his experience with outsourcing was just pure comedy.
It illustrates the point perfectly, though. He hired a team in Bangalore to handle his life. And he did not just give them data entry, he gave them his actual personal life.
He had them arguing with his wife.
That was the best part. He forgot to get cash or do some chore, and his wife was annoyed. So he had his virtual assistant, a woman named Asha, send an email to his wife.
It was something like, I love you, but gently reminding you that you also forget things.
Yes. And then Asha sent an e-card with cute teddy bears on it to smooth it over.
And the craziest thing is that his wife wasn't even mad. She actually thought it was funny. It completely diffused the situation.
He even outsourced his worry. He was stressed about a business deal, so he literally asked his VA to worry about it for him. The VA emailed back saying, I am currently worrying about this very deeply. And A.J. Jacobs said he actually felt better.
While that is hilarious, the business application is very serious. This is geo-arbitrage. You earn in a strong currency like dollars, and you pay in a weaker currency like rupees or pesos.
It is extreme leverage. You can hire smart, capable people for maybe $4 to $15 an hour. If your time is worth $50 or $100 an hour, every hour you spend scheduling meetings or researching flights is a direct loss of money.
But Ferriss has a golden rule for automation that I think saves people from absolute disaster. Eliminate before you delegate.
This is where most aspiring entrepreneurs fail completely. They take a messy, inefficient process, and they just hire someone overseas to do it.
You are just automating a traffic jam.
Exactly. If you automate an inefficient process, you just magnify the inefficiency and you lose cash faster. You have to clean the process first. Simplify it, then hand it off.
He gives a great example from his own sports nutrition company. He realized he was the bottleneck for customer service. He was answering hundreds of emails a day himself.
Because his team felt they had to ask him for permission for everything. Can I refund this guy? Can I ship a replacement?
So what was the fix?
Empowerment. He told his virtual assistants, if the problem can be fixed for less than $100, just do it. Do not ask me. Just fix it.
That is scary for a control freak, just giving away the checkbook like that.
It is, but look at the math. Maybe a few people scam you. Maybe you lose $200 a month in bad refunds.
But Ferriss got his entire life back. His email volume dropped from 200 a day to maybe 20 a week.
And paradoxically, his returns went down because customers were so happy to get an instant resolution that they bought from him again. Speed and autonomy actually built trust. And it removed him as the bottleneck. That is the ultimate goal of automation, to build a system that runs without you, so you can go live that new, rich lifestyle we defined in step 1.
So when you look at deal definition, elimination, automation, liberation, it really is a progression. You cannot just skip straight to the end.
Right. And I think the reason this book sticks with people, the reason we are still analyzing it years later, is not because we all want to outsource our apologies or become kickboxing champions. It is because it exposes a profound lack of imagination in how we live.
What do you mean by that?
We assume the rules of work are laws of physics. I must sit in a chair for 8 hours. I must retire at 65. Versus points out that these are just cultural defaults. They're entirely optional.
There is a thought experiment at the very end of the section that really kept me up at night, the heart attack scenario.
Oh, it is a brutal question. He asks you to imagine you go to the doctor, and he tells you that you have had a minor heart attack. You can live, but you can only work 2 hours a day. That is it. If you work 2 hours and 1 minute, you die.
That forces a level of prioritization that physically hurts. You cannot just do it all anymore. You have to pick the 1 or 2 things that actually generate results.
And then he twists the knife even further. He asks, what if you had a second heart attack? Now you can only work 2 hours per week.
2 hours a week. That means you literally cannot work in the traditional sense. You can only manage systems. You can only make high-level decisions.
It forces you to think about automation and elimination not as nice-to-haves, but as absolute survival strategies.
And the kicker, the question he leaves you with, is simply, why aren't you doing that now?
Why wait for the heart attack to claim your time?
That is the question we want you to mull over this week. Are you actually being productive, or are you just being busy because it is socially acceptable? Are you deferring your life for a retirement that might not look anything like what you think?
And could you accomplish your work in 2 hours if you really, really had to?
I think for a lot of us, the answer is uncomfortably yes. That is it for this deep dive into the 4-hour work week. Go calculate your target monthly income, fire some high-maintenance clients or friends, and we will see you next time.
Take care.